Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of Translation of Light Astrology. In this episode, I'll be talking about the Simpsons Zodiac. Please, if you enjoy this video, like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Notice this video is for educational and entertainment purposes. So, when we think about the stars, the night sky, I think it's kind of the first screen that people had uh, onto which they could project characters, gods, stories that they would be able to see on a nightly basis. And obviously, astrology is an ancient continuation of all of those myths and knowledge. Over time, as society became industrialized and technology, advanced, we have most people in the West have lost the ability to actually see the sky or use it as a storytelling device. Not to mention the fact that we're so distracted by these little, they're sort of like, if you think about a phone screen, it's like a little bit of the sky that you hold in your hands, and people get addicted to that. Um, and it gets to the point where we actually describe people who are famous on TV or in movies as stars. You're watching the stars still, just as our ancestors were watching the actual stars in the sky. So here's a little excerpt from Simpsons Halloween special. Homer says he's looking in the newspaper. He says, "Woo, my horoscope." And he reads it. It says, "Taurus, today you will die." Marge says, "What?" And Homer goes, "Ah, and you may get a compliment from an attractive coworker." And he says, "Lenny?" So let's do a quick review of the Zodiac, which again came out of this, millennia of watching the sky. As you can see here, here's the Zodiac wheel. We've got the 12, the glyphs for the 12 different signs. And of course, this is an incredibly powerful, sort of tool to understand what's going on, what symbolically is happening. But, in terms of fun or just an experimentation, what if we map the Simpsons onto this Zodiac and try to match up, the different characters with the different signs? Now, if you are familiar with tarot, you know that there are hundreds and hundreds of decks that, can be everything from, Hello Kitty tarot or steampunk tarot. Why, can we not do this? So I know some people are a little bit touchy around astrology, and I'm somebody that's in a more experimental mode. I'm not saying seriously adopt the Simpsons Zodiac. I'm saying let's explore what we might learn from playing, crossing these wires and playing with these ideas. So if you look up at the top here, the first sign of the zodiac is Aries, which is associated with independence and impulsivity, very male sign. And I'm assigning Bart Simpson to Aries. Moving on, we've got Homer Simpson as Taurus. And Homer is no, actually, he literally, they show his driver's license in one episode, and he is a Taurus. He's a May Taurus, uh, fictional birth date. But Taurus, after Aries has survived and established its individuality in the world, Taurus gets down to grounding themselves in the materiality and looks for stability and sensual pleasure. If we keep moving around, we've got the twins, Patty and Selma, who are Marge's sisters. I'm assigning them to Gemini. Obviously, that's pretty easy. They're twins. But there's a couple of other like little interesting things about them. One is that they smoke a lot, and Gemini rules the lungs. They also work at the DMV, and the DMV is all about cars and moving around, which is a mercurial thing. Um, Moving on, we've got Marge as Cancer. So this is the kind of sign of nurturing and protection, of growth. Obviously, that's what Marge does. After that, I'm giving Krusty the Clown to Leo. He's a performer and has an audience and sort of needs attention. After that, we've got Ned Flanders as Virgo. Ned is very, maybe to a fault, very helpful to his neighbors, and also kind of a little nitpicky about things. Um, we could even, yeah. So, all right. So after Ned Flanders, we've got Lisa Simpson. So, Lisa as Libra. Um, this is an air sign. Lisa's the smart one. Lisa also plays an air musical instrument, the saxophone. And she's generally looking for fairness. She's looking for relations. She's concerned about social issues. Um, Things get a little darker when you get to Sideshow Bob, giving him to Scorpio. And he's got this real emotional intensity to him and tenacity. So there's a whole storyline where Bart thwarts his plans, and he then spends a long time trying to kill Bart. After that, we move into the fall sign of Sagittarius. Dr. Hibbert seems a natural choice here. We think about Chiron as the wounded healer. The idea that he's very educated, but he also has this kind of personality that's very humorously casual. So even if he's delivering a very serious diagnosis for somebody, he'll do his trademark chuckle and laugh. And, Jupiter kind of laughter. Um, if you look at the way that it's transcribed, when he laughs, it's called a jovial chuckle. Jovial meaning Jupiterian chuckle. So seems fair to give him to Jupiter's sign here. Mr. Burns has to be Capricorn. He's old, he works hard, and he's very determined, very determined to make things happen. He's earthy. All of his money and his wealth, he's very, very material focused. Professor Frink is more Aquarian. Again, the air sign. He's thinking a lot. If you look at the Aquarius glyph with the squiggles, it almost looks like a scientist's oscilloscope in a lab. Kind of, he's reaching for those abstract scientific mathematical principles and trying to bring them down to earth to share with people. He makes a lot of inventions. And finally, we have to end with Ralph Wiggum as Pisces. So Ralph um, has this sense of permeability, and he's almost like a human, I don't know, like an amoeba or something, where he is so you can't tell if he's sort of like spiritually enlightened or not very bright. But overall, he's kind of on his own wavelength of things. He seems to be connected to things. I think he talks to inanimate objects. He sees leprechauns that tell him to burn things like that. So this is my overall scheme. We're going to go a little deeper into each of these characters and what their signs mean. So this is a medieval engraving showing this geocentric Earth view, where you've got the Earth at the center here. It's a little hard to see, but this kind of circle in the center is the Earth, and it's surrounded as you go out by Luna, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. This is the order of the planets. So I'm gonna basically go in the opposite direction, which is called Chaldean order, which is start with the slowest moving planet, which is Saturn, and we'll work our way all the way down to the fastest moving planet, quote unquote planet, which is the moon. So here we go. We're going to talk about Saturn. So what is Saturn like? You may already know this, you may not, but let's talk about it. So, Saturn's nature, cold and dry. It moves slow. Its humor is melancholic, sort of earthy, cold, depressive. The colors that are associated with Saturn are black, sad colors, ashen colors, and the personality tends to be solitary and malevolent. Some of the traditional significations are old men, fathers, farmers, and miners. And I'm taking these from William Lilly via Deb Holdings' wonderful annotated version of Lilly's Christian astrology. So here we see Saturn, of course, is famous for eating his own children to keep his power. Um, oops. So let's start here. Aquarius, Professor Frink. This is a winter sign. It's an air sign. Its style, its mode is fixed, so it sustains things. The personality is intellectual and innovative, and the goal here is to innovate and improve the lives of others. I've mentioned here some things about the body connection. Sometimes there's a resonance with the character, sometimes not. Uh, Places associated would be industrial places like factories, docks, and mines. So, in one episode, Homer is becomes interested in inventing things, and Homer says to Frank, or look, I just want to know how to invent things. And Frank says, all you have to do is think of things which people need, but which don't exist yet. And I think that's a pretty Aquarian statement. So think, right? Think of things uh, what people need. So this is Aquarius is the group sign, and which don't exist yet, which shows you the kind of the future focus, the reaching for something new that Aquarius is known for. Mr. Montgomery Burns, another winter sign. Element is Earth. The style here is to start things is a cardinal, and the personality is determined and ambitious. The goal is to achieve a great work, as Austin Coppock says. It's related to the body, the bones, the joints, the skeleton, and also associated with industrial places like factories, which is where he owns basically this nuclear power plant. And so Smithers says, I'm afraid we have a bad image, sir. Market research shows people see you as something of an ogre. And Mr. Burns says, I ought to club them and eat their bones. So let's move on to Jupiter. So, which Simpsons characters are Jupiterian? Well, let's talk about Jupiter first. So, Jupiter, temperate nature is temperately hot and moist. It moves slowly. The humor is sanguine, which means, kind of upbeat, energetic, sociable. Personality, magnanimous and faithful. And it signifies judges, priests, teachers, lawyers, among others. And so I'm going to assign, I mentioned Dr. Hibbert. So Dr. Hibbert, element here of Sagittarius is fire, and it's adaptable, it's mutable. The personality is optimistic, curious, and adventurous. And the goal is to find the truth. And if you think about what a doctor does, a doctor is always going in and sort of trying to find out, what the truth of someone's condition is, and then what the truth of the right treatment would be for them. So in one episode, Marge says, is there anything you can prescribe, doctor? And of course, Dr. Hibbert says, fire and lots of it. So there's the element. And Marge says, that's your prescription for everything. Now, perhaps one of the most beloved characters, Ralph Wiggum. Again, I mentioned Pisces. So the personality is intuitive and sensitive. The goal is to merge with the universe, to kind of blend into everything and everyone. And one of the, one of the many quotes he has is, "When I grow up, I want to be a principal or a caterpillar." And it's interesting because the principal, is a Jupiterian role, somebody in charge of a school. And moving on to Mars. So Mars is hot and dry. It's choleric, meaning it's sort of cranky, angry. It's assertive and active. And some of the types of people it signifies are tyrants, soldiers, surgeons, and butchers. So, of course, we're talking about Bart Simpson. So, Bart is fiery. He likes to start things. His personality is bold, competitive, and impulsive. his goal is just survival and independence. And the part of the body, is the head. And I wonder if there isn't something about his spiky, kind of aggressive haircut that is kind of symbolizing that Aryan, intensity coming out. One of Bart's many catchphrases is, "I'm Bart Simpson. Who the hell are you?" And again, if you think about that, it's literally a statement of his identity and an aggressive question about what your identity is, because identity is really a vital thing for Aries. Sideshow Bob. So here we've got Mars, but this is kind of the nighttime sign of Mars in water. It's not starting things, it's sustaining things, perhaps like grudges. Personality, intense and determined. The goal is for deep passion and transformation. And so one of Sideshow Bob's quotes is, "I once thought about killing the world's greatest lover, but there's laws against suicide." So killing the greatest lover, interesting. So the sun. Sun is hot and dry, also choleric, personality, majestic, confident, arrogant. It signifies kings, leaders, men, fathers. Here's the sun. Here's Phoebus Apollo driving a chariot. So, Krusty the Clown. Um, Personality, confident, generous, loyal. For Leo, obviously, he's a little bit more damaged goods. The goal is to create, perform, and lead. The body part is the heart, and I believe he had heart attacks. I believe he's had open heart surgery, so that's kind of related. And the places associated with Leo are palaces, theaters, and warm places, and he literally works in a theater. One of his, kind of black humor quotes, "That's show business for you. One day you're the most important guy that ever lived. The next day you're some schmo working in a box factory." And, Leos traditionally are said to have this spectrum of feeling from needing to be in the center of attention, needing to be appreciated, but also being afraid of not having that happen for them, working in a box factory. So what about Venus? So Venus is temperately cold and moist, sanguine, so it's more personable, more sociable, more upbeat. The personality is pleasant and playful, and she signifies musicians, artists, and women. So of course we mentioned Lisa Simpson. So her personality, charming and diplomatic. Her goal, balanced relationships. Um, and yeah, so here's one of the quotes from Lisa. Lisa says, "Shut up, brain. I've got friends now. I don't need you anymore." There's an episode where she has continually had, problems being, she's the bookworm. Doesn't have many friends. So there's a point where she's so tempted by these new friends that she wants to just leave that bookish, curious, intelligent side, in the past. And what does that say? Libra, right? Relationships being really important. No matter how smart she is, she still craves that connection with other people. Again, I mentioned the air sign and the air instrument that she plays. Homer Simpson, perhaps my favorite character of all. Um, Personality, sensual and grounded. The goal is pleasure and security. And I mean, there's too many good quotes for Homer, but one of them I picked was just, he's in bed and he says, "I'm just a big toasty cinnamon bun. I never want to leave this bed." So that's pretty much Taurus in a nutshell. It's food and comfort and rest. Mercury. Mercury obviously is very fast and personality, intelligent, eloquent, signifies writers, mathematicians, accountants, and thieves, among others. So we mentioned Patty and Selma. air sign again, the smoking, the twins. They're curious and sociable. They always seem to be gossiping about Homer or insulting him or about what other people in the town are doing. The goal of Gemini is to become aware of the relationships between all things, all ideas, um, and people. And here's one of their zingers. Patty was referring to Homer, who's disappeared, and she says, "It's just like he disappeared into fat air." So it's just, I mean, I hope you can see here. I'm not saying this is the perfect canonical assignment. It would be great if you came up with your own assignments if you disagree with some of these signs and characters. I'm just saying this is the best that I could do, and it does seem relatively compelling. Flanders. How helpful and practical. So the goal of Virgo, identify what's good and make it useful. So here's a quote about Flanders. Virgo's known for making distinctions between things. It's also known for, you know, um, you know, uh, growth, plant life. Virgo is holding a sheaf of wheat. So Flanders says, most people don't know the difference between apple cider and apple juice, but I do. Here's a little trick to help you remember. If it's clear and yellow, you got juice there, fella. If it's tangy and brown, you're in cider town. Now, there are two exceptions to that, and of course, in Canada, the whole thing's flip-flopped. So here he's talking about, you know, um, fruit. Basically, he's making multiple distinctions, and he's saying, here's a little trick to help you. So that's where the Virgo service kind of situation is. Virgo also is a double-bodied sign, a mutable sign. So in Canada, the whole thing's flip-flopped. So that's the idea of always being kind of adaptable and having more than one side. The moon, we've saved the best for last. So the moon, very fast. Personality is nurturing, always changing. Signifies queens, women, sailors, messengers. And of course, Marge Simpson is in Cancer here in my book. Um, her personality is caring and loyal. Her goal is to nurture and protect. And here's one of Marge's quotes. You can't hide from me in this house. I spend 23 hours a day here. So Cancer is also very associated, with the house, with the home and the family. So let's turn our attention to the elements. You've heard me, I've been mentioning some of these signs are fire, some of them are air, some of them are water, some of them are earth. We can go through them and sort of get some other insights about the characters by just looking at these are called their triplicities, where there's three signs in each of those four elements. So when I did this, I noticed a couple of interesting things. So if we start here with Bart, as the cardinal one, and then Krusty is the fixed one, and then Dr. Hibbert is the mutable one. One thing to note is that there's an educational sort of spectrum being reflected here, which I'm sure is unintentional, but Bart has the least amount of education. Krusty has somewhat more, and Dr. Hibbert has the most. He's an actual, MD. And, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's early in the spring, doesn't have a lot of experience. When you get to Leo, this is the height of the sun's power, which is going to start to decline. Um, and when you get down to, Dr. Hibbert, you're getting towards the end of the zodiac, the end of the year. There's kind of a lot of accumulated experience going on here. Um, yes. In terms of air, I would say, Patty and Selma are the first air sign of Gemini. Lisa is Libra, and Professor Frink is Aquarius. So, educationally, this also seems to map out pretty well. Patty and Selma work at the DMV. Lisa is like kind of a child prodigy, and Professor Frink is a, egghead professor. So that's kind of interesting. Um, you could also say Another thing I could say about these signs is like Bart is out for himself as an Aries. He's out to, his needs. I'm Bart Simpson. Who the hell are you? Krusty is, as a Leo, is taking his abilities and sharing it with people. He has an audience. Bart has sort of an audience, but it's mainly about him. Krusty is trying to entertain the audience. And then if you go to Dr. Hibbert has not exactly an audience, but he's actually helping a large number of people. He's not running around, spray painting his name on the wall like Bart does. Um, you know, Patty and Selma, they work in the DMV, so they have a small role in the society. Um, and Lisa, seems like she has a bright future. She might actually be more prominent than them. And her, you know, when we get to Frink, he's got this kind of Aquarian, global kind of thing, a humanity thing that he's working on. Science and math are very abstract and they're very applicable across humanity. Um, Actually, one last thing is that Lisa is also a performer in the middle part of this thing. So she's ready to get out with her saxophone and perform in front of people. Patty and Selma don't perform. So Earth. Um, Homer, in terms of age, I'm not sure about the progression here exactly. Homer and Ned, I'm not sure which one is older or younger, but obviously Mr. Burns is the older one. It's the older sign. Capricorn is kind of an old sign. Um, in terms of education, Homer has, the least education of these three. Ned clearly has had multiple jobs. He has his own business. He's knows a lot about religion. Mr. Burns has a very long history, including having studied at Yale. He was also a Nazi at some point in World War II. Um, so it's interesting to me. Homer, again, if we think about the self-focus, Homer's out for Homer and his stomach. Ned is almost painfully devoted to other people and trying to help them. Interestingly, Mr. Burns kind of reverts to kind of even a more selfish individualism here. So you don't have an easy arc here, but like obviously he's out for himself. He's the greedy ogre old man. Um, so I'm not sure how to do that. And I think most of us would probably prefer Homer or think of Homer oddly as a bit more mature than Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns is a bit sterile. Homer has a family. He makes a lot of mistakes. He does a lot of stupid stuff, but he is taking care of people. He has friends. Mr. Burns just has Mr. Smithers. So I'm not sure how to read that one. Uh, in terms of the water signs, so here it's a little bit different. Again, water, we're dealing with more of the emotions of things. Marge is concerned about her family as a Cancer, as she's nurturing all the time. That's her whole life. Sideshow Bob, again, is in that performer kind of middle stage, but is really obsessed with going deep. He has this incredible grudge against Bart and he wants to kill him. So it's a scorpionic kind of a thing. It's about going super deep, looking for authenticity. Ralph, as I mentioned a little bit before, Ralph is um, kind of advanced in a way. I think again, he's a double-bodied sign as Pisces. He's a bit, they talk about the holy fool. He's got that sense of like, I'm not sure if this guy's putting me on. Is something wrong with him? But he doesn't harm other people, and he seems to be in the flow of nature. He's on a different level than any of these characters. So going back to the zodiac here. I wanted to point something out. So we have aspects in astrology, and one of the major aspects is called an opposition, which is where there's say one planet or one sign across from another sign, and this is considered that these two signs they're like two ways to go. Like there's a bit of a can be a competition between them, some tension between them. Can be fruitful, can be constructive, but there's sort of a tension. So I wanted to go through my little scheme here and explain the opposition. So Bart up here, obviously Aries. He's for himself. He wants excitement. He doesn't think about long-term things. Down here, he has a lot of, conflict with his sister Lisa. Lisa's trying to make peace with things. So that's kind of like an archetypal, opposition. If we look at Homer over here, we mentioned him being, earthy and into pleasure, kind of lazy, not changing, not learning. And then over here, we've got an opposition with Sideshow Bob, who's in Scorpio. And in one episode, Sideshow Bob is literally trying to kill Homer. So that's one example. But you could say Homer is interested in like the best donut or taking a great nap or sleeping on the job. He's interested in satisfying physical, sensual things. And this Sideshow Bob is looking for emotional satisfaction, looking for real deep emotion experiences. Patty and Selma over here in Gemini, opposed to Dr. Hibbert in Sagittarius. I mean, one obvious thing would just be that, they smoke and he's a doctor. So there's this idea of, maybe they're going to have to go to him at some point because of their stuff. Again, I mentioned like they don't have much scope in their job. He has a much wider scope of his job. Uh, you know, uh, Gemini, it can be a little bit not flaky exactly, but a little bit based on gossip, short attention span, and that's a little bit the opposite over here. So when we get to Marge and Cancer, she's taking care of the family. She really cares. And then here's Mr. Burns and Capricorn. He's got no family. He cares for himself. He cares about power. Seems like a pretty obvious opposition. Um, Here we go, Krusty the Clown in Leo is the performer, gets on stage, gets the attention, brands things after his name, is really concerned about his image. And then Professor Frink over here is the opposite, basically anonymous. Not there. It's not about him. It's about his inventions for other people. So it's not that one of these is better than the other or worse than the other. It's just that's what an opposition is. It's about talking about the introvert versus the extrovert still. And of course, Krusty has a lot of charisma. He's very popular on his show. Frink has like a lack of charisma. If we look at Ned Flanders down here in Virgo, I've already mentioned, some of his some of his things, but basically, he's very practical. He's very grounded and earthy about things, and very like reasonable, considerate. But then when you talk about Ralph Wiggum up here in Pisces as the opposition, again, I mentioned he's kind of spaced out all the time. He wouldn't know how to tell you about the difference between apple juice and cider. He would just say something surreal. So those are the oppositions that are here. I think it's another interesting flavor. So what about the relation? Oh yeah, relations. We talked about that already. Yeah. So um, from Bart to Ralph. So there's an idea that the zodiac, that each sign kind of expresses something, an important part of our humanity, and the sign following it sort of corrects for that previous sign. It kind of makes some adjustments, and then that kind of continues all the way around. So, in a way, each sign is imbalanced in a certain way. So, obviously, Aries can have too much aggression, too much self-focus. Libra can be too passive and be too other focused. So again, not one is wrong or right. It's just this is the way it works. So if we think about starting with Bart Aries as the first sign of the zodiac, we're going to work our way around to Ralph Wiggum as Pisces as the last sign. Again, Bart is trying to establish himself. He is always kind of looking for attention. He doesn't think about long-term things. He's very fiery, very impulsive. You look at his dad, and it's almost as if, what if Bart aged, another 30 years? Um, Homer, maybe when he was younger, had a bit of that impulsivity and stuff, but now he's exploring materiality. He's exploring stability. He likes stability. He likes the creature comforts. Bart is all about, adrenaline and excitement. Homer is more about, I guess, serotonin and pleasure. So Homer, notoriously is um, kind of clueless about a lot of things and a lot of relations. So the next sign, if we take Gemini, Gemini spends a lot of time on those relations, the Patty and Selma. They are really interested in understanding what is the connection here? How does this work? How do these people connect to each other? Um, so after you've done that, you might want to move to Cancer with Marge and say, okay, now I've established myself, Aries. I've, grounded myself securely in Taurus. I've explored my local environment and people in Gemini. Now it's time to settle down and grow a family. So that's what kind of Marge is doing. Patty and Selma, actually the first three signs are relatively selfish, at least in this Simpsons thing. Bart's out for himself, Homer's out for himself, Patty and Selma, they're mainly focused on themselves. Marge is the first one, Cardinal. She's starting something new where her focus is mainly other people and taking care of them. So, Marge, it's interesting because I don't have the whole, series memorized, but Mars has had some episodes where she's been an artist, where she's been a policewoman, where she's done different things. She's gotten a little bit out of that Cancerian shell. Um, so when we go to Krusty the Clown, it's kind of like you can almost imagine Marge. I don't know, maybe the kids have gone away to college and she's finally painting. She's finally doing something. She's finally expressing herself, creating stuff for herself. That's what Krusty does. So Krusty is is really into that performing, having an audience and stuff. But it's focused on Krusty. The show is named after him. It's about him. It's self-centered. It's leonine. So when you get to Flanders, it's kind of like, ooh, now Virgo is not self-obsessed. It's going to take care of other people. It wants to really be detailed. Krusty's all over the place. He's sloppy and messy, unprofessional, and Flanders corrects for all of that in Virgo. He's professional and detailed. So when we get to Lisa, Flanders is I would say a bit of a loner. And, Lisa is about that Libra building a bridge out to others. So she's not just, Flanders, yeah, anyway. So when you move on from Lisa, what happens to somebody from Libra who is really concerned about social relationships, but now wants to go emotionally deep? Sideshow Bob. Um, once you Sideshow Bob goes too far down the rabbit hole of self intensity and things. So then we move to Sagittarius with Dr. Hibbert, and this is about inspiration and exploration, helping. Mood wise, we could also talk about this too. Like each of these characters has a different sort of uh, personality profile, mood. Sideshow Bob is kind of intense, really intense. And when you get to Hibbert, he laughs at everything. So there's a kind of like a correction for that. Guess what? Now we're going to go to Mr. Burns. He's not laughing about anything really. And the idea here is, can I build something really big? Can I have create a great work of things for myself? That's a little bit selfish. So then we think about Aquarius and Professor Frink. He's saying, can I discover something? Can I build something that will I can share with others as a great work? And finally, there's kind of like Frink is getting more abstract in ideas and air things. And then we get into Ralph Wiggum, and as I mentioned, this is kind of like the last level, the high spirituality. If we think about the Piscean age, the Jesus thing, Ralph is a little bit like, again, I mentioned, kind of a holy fool. And the holy fool melts. The holy fool disintegrates over time. The identity is kind of just going back into the universe. And if that continues logically, you're going to end up needing to go back to Bart. You're going to end up needing to be reborn and, survive and establish your identity. So I hope you've enjoyed my tour through Springfield and the Zodiac. It's fun. I recommend if you find this interesting, try assigning these different um, these different Zodiac sign characters to a chart. In my chart, I'm a Homer sun, I'm Marge rising, and I have a Krusty the Clown moon. I want to cite these works. So the skyscript.co.uk is an incredible resource for astrology, unbelievable collection of articles and information. Highly recommend it. And here's Deb Holdings' Christian Astrology, Volume 1 and 2. So I pulled a bunch of the significations for the signs from here. If you're interested in this, I may do some more Simpsons stuff because I think The Simpsons is a very archetypal show. It kind of has a lot of the cartoonish versions of each of these characters that makes it very easy to assign them to the Zodiac. So again, just before you get upset, this is not saying let's start an argument about what the Zodiac is or whatever. This is just a playful experiment to be creative and see. And again, if tarot can do it, I think we can do it as well. You could imagine doing Harry Potter Zodiac. You could imagine doing Super Nintendo, Super Mario Brothers Zodiac, and maybe that would be fun. Maybe we would learn something. And of course, I'm totally open to any comments you might have or suggestions because I'm not saying this is perfect. I'm just saying it's fun to put another lens on things to learn some more stuff. So I'm Alberto. I do Translation of Light astrology. I have readings available at translationoflight.org, and I have created a huge archive of astrological images at x.com/museumastro. So thank you for tuning in to Translation of Light, and please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks.